okay?
Hold
and
on,
you can't. No, it has nothing to do with it.
Crime matters in D.C. The victims of crime matter in D.C. What about the cops in D.C.? And I'm
the
saying
only
the
person who
man
died on
presided-
January 6th was a Trump supporter, and you can't talk about what's happening on the streets right now.
All right, today we're diving into one electrifying conversation. We're watching the full head-to-head. But here's the big picture in 20 seconds. One side is screaming crime's out of control. The other is waving statistics that say, hold up, crime's actually tanking. Trump came in, federalized the DC police, and sent 800 National Guard troops onto the streets, claiming chaos. But all data from DOJ and DC's own reports screams the opposite. So, whose story is real? Now I'm letting the video roll uninterrupted. Watch how both play their strongest hands. Watch the styling, the framing, the interruption sparks. Full video, right now, then I'll break down one critical moment in the middle. Pause it for the proof, and then we go deep with a sharp, no BS breakdown.
The D.C. cops want help. What is the right of the mayor and others to say, no, they don't need it?
Last time I checked, Leland, we're in a democracy, so that's the right of the mayor and the people to say that. I mean, D.C. actually is not part of our democracy, right? The people of D.C. have been disenfranchised for a long time. That's a whole separate discussion that we don't have time for tonight about home rule and control by Congress and the fact that they don't have members of Congress, et cetera, et cetera.
But Trump has the right to do this, so we've agreed on that. So
Trump has a legal right to send troops, and he doesn't have a right to interfere in the government, which he's now trying to do. Only Congress does. But, you know, let's just take this one by one. Statistics that you don't like. The statistics do show that crime is down, violent crime is down in D.C. These are FBI statistics as well as city statistics, as well as every stat out there. It's at a 30-year low, violent crime in Washington, D.C. It's down 35% last year, and as you said, 26% this year. You know who bragged? Leland, you know who bragged that crime is down in D.C. by 26% in April of this year?
I'm sure you're going to say Trump did, but I have no idea.
Trump did, yeah, Trump did. They took credit. They said, "Look, crime's down." Ken Martin,
look,
his acting attorney. No, it's important because when they wanted to show the statistics in their favor, they did. Look, it's down. Crime is down in D.C. Homicides are down in D.C.
I think, Mehdi, you're making a mistake here because you're making a mistake here because it doesn't matter whether it's up or down. It was at a high and out of control during the pandemic.
Yes.
Whether it's up or down is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is it still happens. Okay, we have video from Friday night where a mob of kids took over a store and looted it. We have video from about a week ago where they beat up this mob of 15-year-olds were carjacking somebody, beat somebody up, almost killed them. What about their rights? I'm still trying to understand why, if you're a law-abiding citizen, more police is a bad idea.
But it's not more police, right? It's the National Guard. Hire more police. Did you know that the Trump administration just cut $20 million in security funding to D.C., which is weird because apparently crime is out of control. When you say it doesn't matter whether it's up or down, it does. Some of us believe in truth and facts. When you say, you know, crime should be stopped, of course crime should be stopped, but this is not the solution. Are you planning, or is Trump planning to send the National Guard to every city? Is he going to send it to Aurora, Colorado, which has a Republican mayor and a higher crime rate, violent crime rate than D.C.? Is he going to send it to every city? This is not sustainable, Leland. You're smarter than Donald Trump.
I hope he sends it to St. Louis.
You can't solve the crime problem by sending the National Guard. We're Americans. We don't like the military on our streets. We're not a tin pot dictatorship. We should be able to sort out crime through law enforcement, through policy, which Donald Trump doesn't seem to care about.
So let's put the National Guard aside. Let's put the National Guard aside. What's wrong with having?
I'm not going to put the National Guard aside because it's quite important. It's at the core of this. This is about Trump wanting to do a power grab. This is about Trump's obsession with the military. You can pretend it's about...
All right, let's hit pause here because this is the exact moment where facts and framing crash into each other. You just heard Mehdi throw down the claim that the so-called crime crisis is exaggerated. Now, before anyone starts yelling in the comments, let's look at what the data is actually saying. And I'm not talking about cherry-picked numbers from one tweet. I'm talking Department of Justice reports, the DC Metropolitan Police's own year-end stats, multiple independent fact checks, all saying the same thing. Violent crime in DC is down. Not slightly down, but down hard. 30%, 35% in some categories. Homicides have dropped more than a third. Robberies, assaults, carjackings, all showing double-digit declines. This isn't just one quarter. This is the trend line. So if that's the reality, then why are we seeing tanks, National Guard boots on street corners, and talk that makes DC sound like a war zone? That's the part you've got to think about. Because once you see those numbers on screen, and yes, keep looking at them, you start to realize that this moment isn't really about crime. It's about perception. It's about deciding which version of reality you're going to believe, and depending on which channel you watch or which feeds you scroll, you're going to get two completely different Americas in your head. That's why this point in the interview is critical, because this isn't just a clash of opinions, it's a clash of worlds. Now, seeing those numbers side by side with the rhetoric, you can't help but notice the game. This isn't just about truth versus lies. That's too simplistic. It's about how each side decides which truth to spotlight, and which truth to quietly bury under emotional triggers. One side leans on fear, vivid stories, shocking clips, comparisons to Baghdad, because fear sticks in your gut in a way a spreadsheet never will. The other side pulls up bar graphs, year-over-year stats, trying to prove that the crisis is smaller than the headline makes it sound. Both are playing a persuasion game, but they're using completely different weapons. And honestly, that's why people walk away from debates like this more entrenched than when they walked in. Because you didn't just watch two people argue. You watched two worlds collide, and then both try to rebuild reality in their own image.
You think it's because Trump cares about crime in D.C., really? Because I remember Donald Trump on January the 6th, 2021, not giving
Mehdi,
a crap
oh,
about
come on.
crime in D.C.
Now
Sorry,
verb
Leland,
January
sorry,
6th.
Leland.
Okay,
Sorry,
Mehdi,
Leland.
no,
150
Mehdi, come on,
police
come on,
officers.
come on,
Let me finish my point.
Mehdi,
This is a short segment. You gave
I know,
Bill O'Reilly
I know you
time.
said
Let
that.
me
150 police officers got hurt.
Speak.
Hold
Hold on. You gave Bill O'Reilly a lot of time. Let me give an answer. I'm here for much shorter time. Let me speak. On January 6, 2021, you may want to move on for it. We all watched police officers in D.C. being attacked by a Trump-supporting mob, 150 injured, 600 people convicted.
Mehdi, you're going to sit here. We know the statistics of January 6th. Mehdi, you're going to sit here. Mehdi, you're going to sit here. Mehdi, you're going to sit here and say if Trump cures cancer, then January 6th was terrible. Okay, the fact of the matter is you can't have an argument. You can't have an argument about what's happening on the streets of D.C. without going back to January 6th.
Because it's about
you won't talk about actually the crime.
Donald Trump, Leland. No,
it's not. It's about how to have people be safe.
I said to you, Donald Trump doesn't care about crime in D.C. You said, yes, he does. And I said, I'm going to give you evidence to prove he doesn't. If he cared about crime in D.C., why did he pardon 600 people who assaulted police officers? You can't come and make this emotional
claim to me. Oh, come on, Mehdi. You can't. You're talking about completely different things.
You don't actually care about crime, then.
You cannot talk about this. There's completely different things going on.
Why?
What do you mean either I care about crime or I don't?
Where was the National Guard? Where was the National Guard on January 6th, 2021
come on. You can't do no. This is silly.
Day.
This is absolutely silly, Mehdi. You can't do this.
Why,
no, because it has nothing to do with what's happening or what the arguments are right now. Okay? And you can't. No, it has nothing to do with it.
Crime matters in D.C. The victims of crime matter in D.C. What about the cops in D.C.? And I'm
the
saying
only person who died on January 6th was a Trump supporter, and you can't talk about what's happening on the streets right now.
Let me know when you want me to speak.
No, you can't talk about you cannot talk about this without talking about January 6th or anything else. You won't have an argument on the merits. Mehdi, thank you as always.
When you sit through the whole interview, you start to realize that this wasn't a polite exchange of ideas. This was a tug of war over the audience's sense of reality. Mehdi keeps hammering away at the idea that this is political theater, a power grab dressed up as public safety. He's pulling out stats, fact checks, hard numbers, almost daring you to compare them to the imagery and language being thrown at you. And on the other side, you've got a performance that's all about urgency and danger. Words and pictures chosen to make your heart beat faster, to make you believe the city is one bad night away from total collapse. And it works. It always works because humans respond to fear before we respond to logic. That's neuroscience, not politics. But here's where it gets messy. When leaders start governing based on how things look instead of how things are, you can justify almost anything. You can put troops on corners, you can sidestep local authority, you can centralize control, all while pointing to a narrative that feels real, even if the numbers say otherwise. And once people buy into that story, the actual data doesn't matter anymore. They'll defend the feeling, not the fact. That's why you can't just watch interviews like this passively. You've got to pause, rewind, pull up the receipts yourself. Not because you owe it to any politician, but because you owe it to your own ability to think straight in a world that's trying every day to make you feel before you think. So whether you walked away from this thinking Mehdi nailed it, or that the other side made the stronger case, that's fine. Argue in the comments, rip me apart if you think I'm wrong. But at least have that argument on the same playing field, where facts are visible and fear isn't the only thing in the driver's seat. That's why we do these breakdowns, not to pick a team, but to drag the truth out into the daylight and make it answer for itself. Because if we stop doing that, if we stop asking hard questions just because it's uncomfortable or it's easier to cheer for our side, then we're just handing the mic to whoever yells the loudest. If you want more of these breakdowns, full clips, full context, none of the lazy editing, and a whole lot of calling it like it is, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the conversation. We're only just getting started, and trust me, the next one, it's going to make this one look tame.